Now that we've gotten through some administrative work, it's time to start learning about Ethereum and using it to build actual applications. In this section, we're going to start off with a little bit of a history lesson. Normally, for any technology that you learn, the history of how it was created is not always super important. For example, when you learn about HTML, you don't always learn about who first created HTML. However, in the world of Ethereum, development is changing so rapidly at this point in time that I think getting an idea of why Ethereum was created can serve to help you understand about what the project is and where it's headed. So, little history lesson here. We're going to first start off back in October 31st, 2008. This is the first notable event, and it's not actually tied to Ethereum at all. Instead, this is the date of the original Bitcoin white paper. We refer to it as a white paper. It essentially was an academic paper. It was released by Satoshi Nakamoto. The paper described the creation of a system that would allow people to pay each other directly without the need for a central authority, like a bank. Out of this paper, the Bitcoin network was eventually brought online in January of 2009. Now, this is the original Bitcoin network. One of the key characteristics of the Bitcoin network was the idea of a blockchain. We'll talk about blockchains in great detail throughout this course, but for now, just understand that the Bitcoin blockchain was a tool to store a list of monetary transactions between different people. The Bitcoin network thrived and continues to thrive today. However, the only purpose of Bitcoin was to enable financial transactions. That was it. Send money from person A to person B. Not long after its release, many people realized that they could use some of Bitcoin's original innovations to not only handle the transfer of currency, but other types of exchanges as well. So one person who felt very strongly about this was named Vitalik Buterin. Vitalik authored a white paper of his own. Again, a white paper is essentially an academic document, and he published it back in late 2013. Vitalik was a proponent of the Bitcoin project, but he thought that the Bitcoin project was too simple in nature. He envisioned using blockchain technology to create far more complex applications. In fact, he describes using Ethereum to create sub-cryptocurrencies, domain name registration systems, and gambling applications. So Vitalik's ideal world, he didn't want to just use Bitcoin to transfer money. He wanted to figure out some way to use these innovations to create much more advanced applications. And that's what we are here in this course to do. We're going to use this technology to build more advanced applications. Now, inside of his white paper, Vitalik goes on to describe the most important part of the Ethereum network, something called a smart contract. A smart contract is a piece of code that lives in the Ethereum blockchain. This contract can be instructed to do certain things by having a person or another contract send a message to it. These contracts are at the absolute core of what Ethereum is, and we're going to be spending the vast majority of this course to learn about the behavior of these contracts. The Ethereum system eventually went online on July 30th of 2015, and it also continues to flourish to this day. All right, so that's a little history lesson. Again, we don't usually talk too much about the history of the technology we use, but I wanted to share this short creation story with you just to highlight the fact that at the very point of its inception, the Ethereum network was designed around this idea of smart contracts that operate on a blockchain, and their purpose is to allow for the creation of advanced applications. Now that we have a sense of one of the design goals of Ethereum, let's continue in the next section and start getting some experience with the Ethereum network.